Let's do some college basketball. And Antoine Davis, you know that name?
I do, actually.
University of Detroit Mercy, or do they just call it U of D now?
I think it was we used to call it Detroit Mercy all the time.
No, they dropped Mercy. I'm almost positive they just call it the University of Detroit now.
All right.
Yeah, I'm almost positive. I don't think there's a Detroit Mercy. Is it still that? I thought they dropped it. All right. Anyway, University of Detroit Mercy, whatever you want to call it. This guy, Antoine Davis, his dad's the coach, and he had a chance last night against Youngstown State, right here in Ohio where I'm at, down the road, had a chance to break Pistol Pete Maravich's all-time record for scoring in college basketball. 3,000, right? He had a chance to do it. He fell 3 points short. He actually had a chance to tie it.
Yeah, he could have tied it with 3, obviously, and he had a 3-pointer at the buzzer that would have tied it.
He had 4 misses from 3 in the final 2 minutes, and I give Youngstown State credit. They played, they double-teamed him, they played him tough. He's the top scorer in the league, so they should play him tough and not let the guy just get a record, not do anything dirty, but he shot 7 for 26 from the field, Martin. 4 for 16 from three-pointer. And he didn't get it, and there's something going on now. Even though their team is like 14 and 19, they're trying to get into some sort of tournament so those points would count for him, and he would break the record. But I got to be honest, and I'm not trying to rain on his parade or poo-poo like his career, but I think we got to be real careful because this, if he would have broken this record anyway, it would have been Fugazi. Fugazi from top to bottom. And I think sometimes we need to look at circumstance, situations. Pistol Pete, and I'm sure you read up on this, Martin, played 3 years because he couldn't play his freshman year, right? So he played 3 years. Davis has played 5 years. And the number of games, I don't know, Davis has played like 50 more games.
Antoine's played 144 to Pete Maravich's 83.
There you go. Do the math. Like a tremendous amount of games more than Pistol Pete. Pistol Pete, there was no shot clock. Pistol Pete, there were no three-pointers. I mean, I think we love this whole idea. Like, okay, if he would have scored the most points, he would have had the record. That's fine. But he wouldn't have been the most prolific scorer in the history of college basketball. It's Pistol Pete Maravich.
I don't think that anybody was – I don't know how many people were trying to make that argument. I mean, even – and especially – I mean, let's be honest. A guy like Antoine Davis at this point in the game, played for his dad at Mercy in Detroit.
Pistol Pete played for his dad too,
right?
So.
But Pistol Pete was also a top 5 NBA pick, I think third overall.
I get it.
That's not going to be Antoine Davis's future, and I think so. I mean, sure, we talk about great college players, but ultimately, almost all the time, it's because they had an NBA career attached to it, or at least maybe in the boat of Christian Laettner, like what happened in your NBA career? You know what I'm saying?
Christian Laettner was a great college player.
But it's almost all like I can't tell you the guy who just started in college and then didn't go on to the next level, and I don't know if that guy exists. Like we have a lot of try-hard guys. Like Aaron Kraft, for example, played point guard for Ohio State for like 7.5 years. When I was at Michigan, but like nobody was thinking he was going to be a pro. So I don't think anybody was thinking that Antoine Davis was going to be named now the most prolific scorer in college basketball history.
But he would have had the record. I'm just saying when you just can't look at the number of points. Like when you look at these things factor in. All I'm saying is he could have gotten the record and maybe he made the 3 or maybe just broke the record of numbers, but it still would have been Fugazi for me. I just would have looked at it and been like, okay, he played way more games. And Pistol Pete averaged 44. He averaged almost 20 points more than this kid, and he played 5 years to 3 years. It's just weird that people have made like going overboard on this. And I'm not trying to take the joy away from the kid. You play if you finish with the most points. But I'm asking you, when you look at this, Martin, did you put it to the side? Did you look at it and think, wow, that's interesting? What was your take when you heard that this kid had a chance to break Pistol Pete's record, I guess is my point. Did you need to look deeper into it, or did you take it at face value?
I'll say this. If he had got it, look, I'm not about to sit in here and punish people for what happened for COVID, right? He had an extra fifth year for COVID. He took advantage of it. You know, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime situation. Things happen, right? I'm not going to admonish the kid for going out there and playing, you know, an extra year, especially playing with his dad, staying in school. Like, hey, do you. But I know this. If he goes to the College Basketball Invitational, the CBI, and breaks the record, I really don't care. Because here, like, if you play –
Should they go? And he claims that he wants Detroit Mercy to go, but not because – of the record, because he wants to end the season on a better note rather than losing the way.
I think both of those are both of those could be true. It could be true that he would want to go and break the record, but also.
But they were 14 and 19. What tournament are you going to?
Well,
I just don't even understand.
But that's my thing. Okay, your team, like you. NFL season is longer. NBA season is longer. College basketball season is longer. Almost everything is going to be longer. So these records that stood in a 14-game season versus a 16-game season versus a 17-game season in the NFL, and same thing in college basketball. Some of these records are going to break just off the strength of longevity. But if your team is about to pay almost $30,000 to participate in a postseason tournament, like that to me feels real YMCA-ish. As opposed to we're sitting here and like if he goes and if they somehow qualify for the NCAAs, or if they had, you know, at 14 and 19, let's say they had won the Horizon League tournament and made the tournament and made the NCAA tournament, then cool, got it. But your team's success has to come into some play here, and your team was not good enough for you to get an opportunity to break the record when it was the right time, when you were playing. Right, so I'm good on the CBI record breaking. When you got to pay to play, this isn't high school anymore.
Who was the women's college basketball player? I think she played. Is Steve DeSager listening? Played at UConn, and Martin.
I know what you're talking about.
She broke her leg or something,
and they brought her back in just so she could get 2 more points.
Exactly, and Steve, she couldn't run the floor. She cherry picked down at the end of the court. And they let her get the basket so that she could get the record.
Nikesha Sales.
Yes, and thank you, Steve, for that. I couldn't remember her name, but I said to myself, like, for her to have a broken leg or whatever, be in a cast, and she's on the court cherry picking down near the basket, I would have had 3 people on her to prevent her from scoring. I would have, because things happen. Does that feel good? If that's the way you get the record?
No, I wouldn't.
Martin, I'm asking.
I wouldn't have loved it. I wouldn't have
felt good about it because I got hurt and I'm not playing the game the right way. Like I'm cherry picking at the end of the basket. I'm in like a cast or something, and I can't really play anything else, and I'm just waiting down there for them to throw me the ball. And in this case here with Detroit Mercy, the idea of paying to go to some fraudulent tournament so that he could pass Pistol Pete, who was one of the all-time great college basketball players, to me doesn't feel good. It feels dirty. Like he didn't get it, okay? And now you're going to take another step? You're going to step over another boundary? It wasn't enough that you had 5 years compared to his 3. It wasn't enough that you had 3-pointers to shoot and he had 2-pointers. It wasn't enough that you had the 24-second clock and they didn't in college where they passed the ball around, Martin, right? And there was no penalty in doing it and keeping the ball away from teams.
Sure.
I have
4
a problem. Right, 4 corners, you know that. And you could do it all game. And I just have a problem with Pistol Pete's name being scratched out of the record book over something this fugazi.
Well, yeah, that's what. Yeah, the CBI thing. Because here's the thing. Like when you talked about UConn, Nikesha Sales, I'm reading this article from the New York Times written from 1998. I was just scrolling through it, and one of the coaches at the time, Tara Vanderveer of Stanford at the time, said, "Injuries are a part of the game. Maybe the person who set the record had been injured too."
Thank you.
So, like, it makes a lot of sense.
Well,
Like,
because the UConn coach had said, well, I pulled her in blowout games. I wish I just hadn't done that. She would have gotten the 2 more points for the record, a record that's since been broken, so who cares?
Right, but Steve, at that time, did you think that was right, that she would be on the court where she can't play?
No, it's the same thing with college football and the rushing record that got broken with Ricky Williams and Ron Dane were phenomenal college running backs and put up these superb career numbers, and I don't believe their bowl game records counted at the time.
Right.
Aside from the fact that the guy who broke it played, I think, 11 more games than those guys.
Which is crazy, and then even in this case, I just don't want to see Pistol Pete's name erased, right? Like, he was one of the most prolific college scorers ever. He averaged 44 points in college.
In a 40-minute game.
Which is crazy.
For a career. That's not just having a good week or a good year. His college career, when freshmen were not eligible, 3 years, 44 points a game, and no 3-point line.
No three-pointer and no 24-second clock.
That's why I say I don't think that anybody who is paying attention is going to sit up and say that Antoine Davis is the most prolific scorer in NCAA history. When you sit there and think about 44 minutes, 44 points, 40 minutes, no 3-point line, 3 years, like that right there it's eye-popping, eye-staggering type numbers.